There was a moment when I actually believed the sequels were going to be good, like a fool. Sitting in the theater, popcorn in hand, heart full of hope. And then The Force Awakens started, and I thought, hey, not bad, not great, but familiar. Then The Last Jedi swung in like a wrecking ball, filled with angry Reddit threads and blue milk. And by the time The Rise of Skywalker brought back Emperor Palpatine through dark magic and sheer desperation, I knew we were in trouble. You ever watch something and feel your brain slowly sliding out of your skull in protest? Like, wait, why is Rey suddenly unbeatable? Why is Finn yelling her name again? And why does it feel like the script was written by a magic 8-ball and a focus group of confused marketing interns? These movies weren't just messy. They were actively allergic to consistency, character development, and emotional logic. But hey, at least the lightsabers looked cool. And it's not just about nitpicking. It's about how these sequels took a rich galaxy filled with myth and meaning, and flattened it into a highlight reel of familiar icons and empty callbacks. Luke Skywalker went from savior of the galaxy to grumpy space hermit with a death wish. Han got stabbed for dramatic tension. Leia had to float through space like Mary Poppins just to get some screen time. And don't even get me started on the Knights of Ren. Remember them? Yeah, neither does the script. What really stings is how close it all came to greatness. The cast was talented, the world was wide open, the foundation was rock solid, and yet they still managed to trip over themselves at every turn like stormtroopers with vertigo. They tried to pass it off as bold and subversive. But there's a difference between challenging expectations and just throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what explodes. And yet here we are, years later, still trying to piece together what went wrong and why it matters so much. Because Star Wars isn't just entertainment, it's personal, it's generational. It's something people grew up with, held onto, and believed in. And when that's mishandled, it doesn't just disappoint. It kind of breaks your heart in slow motion. In this video, we're digging deep into how the Star Wars sequels failed, both the franchise and the fans who carried it through the decades. From character assassinations to plot holes the size of Death Stars, we'll break down what went wrong, how it happened, and why it still stings today. And don't worry, we'll have some laughs along the way. Because if we don't laugh at this trilogy, we might just cry ourselves into a Force ghost. There was a time when the idea of new Star Wars movies felt like uncovering lost treasure. A mythical return to a galaxy far, far away that had been silent for too long. Fans were buzzing with theories, the internet was ablaze, and the promise of continuing the Skywalker saga had us all hooked like kids waiting for Christmas morning. The Force Awakens was announced, and suddenly, hope wasn't just a new hope, was a familiar one reborn. But looking back now, that hope feels like a mirage shimmering above the wreckage. We all wondered, how would Luke evolve after Return of the Jedi? Would Han still be flying the Falcon, or maybe running a Corellian bar with Chewie? Could Leia finally bring balance to politics, the way Luke brought balance to the Force? These were the kinds of questions fans had been asking for decades, and Disney had the keys to all of it: the legacy, the lore, and the loyalty of millions. But instead of building on what came before, they hit the reset button. The Force Awakens wasn't a continuation, it was a remix. Rey was mysterious, sure, but suspiciously overpowered. Finn was set up to be something more, then promptly sidelined. And Kylo Ren was a tantrum in a cloak, rather than a compelling villain. What's strange is how easy it should have been. The bones were already there. The galaxy was rich with stories begging to be told. Instead, it felt like the sequels were less about exploring Star Wars, and more about exploiting it. And so we're left wondering not just what went wrong, but why the people in charge didn't seem to care about the questions we were actually asking. Let's just say watching The Last Jedi was like watching someone rewrite your childhood with a red marker and a blindfold. They took Luke Skywalker, our symbol of perseverance, compassion, growth, and turned him into a bitter, reclusive, milk-sipping monk who thinks hope is for suckers. The same guy who risked everything to save Darth Vader suddenly decides his teenage nephew is beyond redemption after one bad dream. Make that make sense. And don't even get me started on Snoke. Here's this looming, mysterious threat, introduced with all the subtlety of a horror movie villain. Then he gets chopped in half mid-sentence, like he's a filler boss in a video game. No backstory, no explanation, no payoff. Just death by surprise. And we're told to move on like it didn't matter at all. Meanwhile, Finn gets turned into a punchline. The guy who defected from the First Order, the only stormtrooper with a conscience, spends an entire movie chasing a space horse through a casino that looks like it was pulled from a rejected Guardians of the Galaxy scene. And Poe, our potential new leader, is told to sit down and shut up, while his character arc gets buried under passive-aggressive lectures. What hurts the most is what we lost in the process. Not just beloved characters or continuity, but the heart of the myth itself. Star Wars was never just about lasers and lightsabers. It was about belief, redemption, hope rising from failure. And somewhere along the way, all of that got drowned in a sea of spectacle and surface-level drama. Han Solo's death in The Force Awakens was supposed to be tragic, but it landed cold. He walked into that bridge like a man marching to a contractual obligation. There was no closure with Leia, no reunion with Luke, just a meaningless sacrifice to set up Kylo's angst. And we were expected to clap because it was bold. Carrie Fisher's final scenes were stitched together with leftover footage and digital ghosts. Leia deserved better. A real farewell, a presence worthy of the general she'd become. Instead, we got soft fades and silence, as if the filmmakers were more concerned with checking boxes than honoring legacies. And Luke. Oh, Luke. His death wasn't a noble sacrifice, it was a technical trick. Force projection across galaxies like a Jedi Zoom call, followed by a dramatic fade-out into space dust. The man who faced down Vader and Palpatine dies alone on a rock, watching twin suns he barely knew. Even Chewbacca, the loyal heart of the crew, gets sidelined into background reactions, and one fake-out death for cheap tension. It all feels so hollow, like echoes of something greater that once was. And as fans, we're left grieving not just characters, but a connection. A story we grew up with. A legend that was supposed to endure. The strange thing is, there were moments fleeting, fragile moments when you could see the potential. When you squinted just right, you caught glimpses of something special hiding beneath the chaos. Kylo Ren wrestling with identity, torn between legacy and rebellion. Rey touching the edges of something ancient, something powerful and misunderstood. The visual language was stunning at times. That throne room duel in Crimson Shadow. The hyperspace ramming of the Supremacia moment so bold and silent, it briefly felt mythic again. Even Crate, with its bleeding white salt plains, had echoes of visual storytelling worthy of the original trilogy. There were ideas, bold ones even. Luke rejecting the idolization of the Jedi, the failure of old institutions, the cost of war. If they had explored those with care, with reverence, this could have been a trilogy about rebuilding, not recycling. The cast had potential too. Adam Driver gave Kylo Ren a rawness that was compelling in spite of the writing. Daisy Ridley tried to make Rey human, even when the script treated her like a checklist. John Boyega radiated charisma, even when reduced to yelling Rey. For the 100th time. But here's the thing even, after all the disappointment, Star Wars isn't dead. Not really, it's wounded, sure. Bruised from corporate meddling and confused narratives. But the galaxy itself fits core the Force, the Jedi, the rebellion of spirit that still lives. We've seen glimmers of it return, in stories like Andor, which treated rebellion with nuance. In The Mandalorian's quieter moments, when the myth breathes again through the eyes of a lone gunslinger. Even in Jedi Survivor, where the legacy of the Order is wrestled with, not worshipped, and the fans are swear not going anywhere. We've been burned before, but we stick around because we believe in what Star Wars could still be. That maybe, one day, a story will come along that speaks to the soul of this universe again, and not just its marketability. There's still power in this myth. Still room for new heroes, new worlds, new reckonings. If creators choose to listen instead of dictate. If they treat the galaxy not as a brand, but as a canvas. Hope isn't just part of the title, it's what built this fandom in the first place. And it's what keeps it alive, even in the darkest corners of disappointment. The tragedy of the sequels isn't just bad writing, it's wasted opportunity. A trilogy that had everything going for it, and still managed to fracture the fanbase deeper than ever before. Instead of uniting generations, it drew lines in the sand. Not between Jedi and Sith, but between disillusionment and denial. They tried to honor the past and build the future, but wound up doing neither. Characters were brought back to die. Arcs were started and abandoned. Themes were introduced and contradicted. The story collapsed under the weight of its own indecision. There's no real villain in this tale. Not Rian Johnson or J.J. Abrams, or even Kathleen Kennedy. The true culprit was a lack of vision. A refusal to commit to any one idea, leaving everything feeling like a patchwork of panic and half-remembered nostalgia. But here we are, still talking about it. Still dissecting every scene, every choice, every line of dialogue. Because deep down, we wanted it to matter. We wanted it to be worthy of the name it carried, and maybe that's the real heartbreak. That even now, after all the missteps, we still care. And that's the very thing the sequels never truly understood. Thank you for watching the whole video. I make videos because of my love for Star Wars and Marvel. I've been asked countless times how I get my subtitles, and I generate them automatically with a tool I built. That same tool can be used here on my website. It's completely free and doesn't require signing up. My website contains the subtitle generator that is perfect for any video. Blogging post, where you can sign up with your email and receive notifications for when I post, and also my 3 channels. Critical Analysis Hub focuses on Star Wars and Marvel movies. Critical Analysis Hub Plus looks at Star Wars and Marvel shows. And Critical Analysis Hub XP centers on video games, like The Last of Us series, Jedi Survivor, and GTA 5. Thank you for being a fan.